If you want a lot of Ben Simmons talk, and many of you, I think, today are talking about Ben Simmons, you will get it in the local hour podcast-only form. Pardon my voice. But I wanted to start, Stugotz, with the Utah Jazz because I found what happened to them before the weekend started to be super interesting because all year long, they were a great team that was doubted. They're a great team that you're only used to seeing lose at the end, whether it's John Stockton, Karl Malone, whatever history it is they bring into a series, you're never expecting them to win the championship at the end. And it's not even fair to them, right? Because
no, it's not, because those teams with Stockton and Malone, a bunch of guys did not win championships merely because Michael Jordan was playing during their time, and those were two of the guys, and that was one of the teams.
But to hold Karl Malone and John Stockton against Donovan Mitchell is a silly exercise. It's a totally different time thing team. But the thing that I found interesting, as we found the entire last 10 years of basketball fascinating. And as sports radio is built on this coach, did the game pass him by at some point? This legend, we criticize everyone, did the game pass him by? And largely that criticism is almost always flimsy or stupid. But when a game evolves so much that you have suddenly the realization, my 3-time defensive player of the year that is a building block for everything I do in the regular season and is a source for why it is I'm good in the regular season, can be minus 24 in an elimination game and needs to be taken out of the game in a way that is super obvious and should get Quinn Snyder fired. But what you saw from Doc Rivers and Quinn Snyder is basically, this is the blueprint that got me here, and I'm going to dance with the, that saying. I'm going to dance with what brought me here. I'm going to trust what it is that I have. Even if it seems obvious to everyone, I need to get Simmons out of the game. I need to get Gobert out of the game. Both coaches stayed entrenched like, no, these are the best players that I have. This is where my money is being spent. I'm not taking them out of the game. And next thing you know, Terrence Mann, he's not that good. It's a nice story.
It's a great story.
It's just wide open threes because he needs to be out of the game in a way that's obvious. When they put 5 3-point shooters out there, Rudy Gobert can't play.
And that's what the Clippers did. And Kawhi's hurt as well. And so it was just a bad loss for Utah. I thought Utah was going to win that series. I'm surprised they did not win that series. But you're right. Gobert played 42 minutes. And if you're Quinn Snyder, you have to do something in game there. You just have to make an adjustment and realize that guy's not going to work, and he's not going to work against Terrence Mann for whatever reason. And he never took him off Terrence Mann.
But Stugotz, think about that for a second. Think about what it is that you're saying there. Your structural blueprint is around a defensive player of the year that has quickly become a dinosaur the moment that you get to the playoffs. And he's got the worst plus minus on the court, and he's making a superstar out of a guy who's not a superstar simply because that guy is taking practice gym jumpers because the game has evolved beyond what is your structural centerpiece. So I want to talk some about what it is that happened there because I found really interesting, Stugotz, in 3 different series. In that series, Kawhi goes out, Paul George reinvents himself.
Yeah.
You saw yesterday, Devin Booker, first triple-double with Chris Paul out. You saw Durant all of a sudden gets more respect from Stugotz because everyone's hurt. And I don't think those guys are actually stepping up. I think their teams are getting slightly worse and their numbers are getting slightly better because their usage rates and they don't have to share the ball with another superstar. So Paul George is in a better position if he's allowed to be the guy who is always with the ball. Your team's going to be lesser.
Right. But we question whether or not Paul George could be the second guy on a team and win an NBA. He was the first guy with Reggie Jackson and Terrence Mann.
But what I'm telling you is it is harder to get the numbers and the reputation as the second guy.
You're right.
It is usage rate. What you just saw from Durant, the reason you just saw unprecedented stuff from Durant is why. There was no one there to get the stats from him. Harden couldn't get past anybody. It was almost weird to watch James Harden played that way where he simply couldn't blow past anybody. He couldn't go get anything at the rim because his hamstring wouldn't let him. And so what ends up happening, Durant gets what you want from him, which is go be a superstar who carries the team. Oh, and also be a superstar who's out in the second round because you lifted all you could lift, but your team's not actually as good when you're playing that way, when you don't have people to share the load who are almost as good as you are.
Yeah, but he almost pulled it off by himself. I'm not saying that Kevin Durant doesn't need help. I'm saying he had the proper amount of help in Oklahoma City with Russell Westbrook. Like, that's all I've ever said, Dan. He obviously, every superstar, even LeBron James, even Michael Jordan, we'll talk to Scottie Pippen later today. I mean, talking about being a number 2 guy, right? But every guy needs a superstar. It was just nice to see Durant put a team on his back because, Dan, that's what he's capable of. That every single night.
It's not all you've ever said.
Well,
and
it kind of is.
No, here's Mike Schur. He is asking because he's on the edge of his seat. He's saying this will be fascinating for Stugotz. His Durant takes are A, he should have stayed in OKC and won a championship by himself. That way he'd earn your respect. And B, his championships with super teams are worthless because he should do it by himself. Now Durant was on a super team with 2 other stars, but who were both hurt, and Durant did do it himself. Greatest Game 7 stat line in NBA history, and they still lost. I am on the edge of my seat waiting to hear how he stitches all of these inconsistencies together.
I've never respected Kevin Durant more than I do right now. More than I did right after that Game 7, Dan. That was breathtaking. That was amazing. The way he played in Games 5 and Game 7 was absolutely, that was some of the best basketball I've ever seen a player play. And that's all I've ever wanted to see Kevin Durant do. And so
to lose in the second round.
Well, Dan, yeah.
That's all you've ever wanted to see him do, lose in the second round.
But if James Harden doesn't have the hamstring or Kyrie doesn't have the ankle, we all know the Nets are still playing today. And they probably win the NBA championship. But it was nice at least for a couple of nights. I'm telling you, I had more respect for Kevin Durant after losing that Game 7 than I did after any win he had with the Golden State Warriors. I'm telling you, I did. In fact, I'm thinking about giving him back a championship. I am.
What?
I'm thinking about it. I'm not there yet.
Oh, okay.
It's just a thought, okay? That's how good he was in Game 5. That's how good he was in Game 7. He was out there pretty much by himself, and he was amazing and almost beat a really, really good Milwaukee Bucks team.
That's always been your standard, the almost beating somebody in the second round.
Listen, the almost winning by yourself sometimes, Dan, has more value to me than winning a championship with a bunch of superstars. You know what I mean? Figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Figure it out.
Well,
okay,
you didn't answer yes. I assume that was a no.
Do you know what I mean? Figure it out.
Yeah.
You don't celebrate
Michael
losers.
Jordan, first season against the Celtics. That was crazy impressive. They lost, but it felt like he won everything that night. You know, he had 63 points, I think, in the Boston Garden. I mean, there's other examples. But, Dan, when you take Kevin Durant and that kind of talent and you put it alongside Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green, you know, it's not that impressive. But when you're out there doing it with Jeff Bleeping Green, pretty damn impressive.
Losing in the second round.
I mean, yeah, but he won. I mean,
but he didn't.
I guarantee you, Kevin Durant has never felt this type of love. You ask Kevin Durant if he feels like if he won or lost. Seriously. Because I'm telling you, deep down inside, Dan, in places he doesn't talk about at cocktail parties, he's going to tell you, I'm telling you right now, hey, that felt great. Everyone celebrated me for 3 consecutive nights. I was out there. Wasn't my fault. Wasn't KD's fault. It was everyone else's fault. It felt great. It felt like he won.
He said otherwise.
Big winner.
He did say the opposite. He said the opposite.
It felt good, right?
Okay, but
Dan, he hit the shot to win the game too. If it wasn't for his toe, they would have won that game. He won that game for them.
Big toe.
That was a win.
Yeah.
Those feet are unbelievably large.
Yeah.
He's got size 17 feet. He wears a size 18 sneaker because he thinks that's more comfortable to play in.
Yeah.
If he had worn a shoe size that was the correct shoe size of 17, I think he ends Milwaukee's season.
Should we be counting shots from where the feet are or from where the shot is taken? Right? Because if his arms are further back,
that's a good point.
Let's say he was a size 10, right? He's hitting that 6-7 inches behind the line if he's a size 10, right? Just based on where the ball was released. That's where it should count from, not where the tips of his toes are.
Billy,
punished.
Can I tell you how much I appreciate you helping us with the visual aid pantomime there of you taking a Durant jumper, going back in your chair and taking a Durant jumper back there? I really enjoyed. So you're saying it shouldn't be where your feet are. It should be where your hands are and where your arms are. Okay, very good.
He's taking his headphones off now, and now he's doing a fadeaway, what looks like.
Hit the fan with a racquetball.
I mean, Dwyane Wade did hit a game-winning three-pointer. He leapt from the three-point line, and he ended up releasing the shot from the top of the key.
It feels like cheating.
I think my favorite moment, Stugotz, in all of these press conferences and all of these Zoom conferences afterward was Donovan Mitchell, his season over. He sits in the chair, and he is handed the box score for the game. And twice he repeats something before it's actually started, where he's looking at it and he's looking at Terrence Mann's stat line clearly. And he says, he mutters under his breath, he missed 6 shots. He says it twice because he's not sure his math is right. He's like, wait a minute, he shot that much. We're out there with this big giant ogre in the middle of our defense with those long arms. Our whole thing is built around this 3-time defensive player of the year.
He was better than Kawhi.
He gave everyone the virus, touching a bunch of microphones. Gobert is this thing that we've built around, and Terrence Mann missed 6 shots. And one of the other things that I enjoyed, what an assassin this was to have this in your life if you're Quinn Snyder. We've marveled over the years at the way that the relationship he has with lip balm. It's aggressive. It's an aggressive relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And he sort of rubs his lips the way that someone cocaine-y might rub their face. We see a lot of this in Miami where you're it's a super aggressive way to apply lip balm. But what I loved is a video where I think it's an assistant coach because it's just an arm with what looks like a suit on it, reaches out with balm. He aggressively grabs it, wipes his lips with it, never says thank you. Because that's Quinn Snyder's life. Somebody just appears with some lip balm, and you don't even have to thank them for it. They just know that their job is to come and help you not have dry lips.
While setting up his defenses and have the 0.8 of a second to thank the assistant coach for the lip balm.
At some point there, they were trying to make his life very efficient so that he would have the time to think. Enough time. Hey, I need to get this ogre out of the game so Terrence Mann doesn't end my season.
He's 15-21.
Utah's great all season, and I do wonder, Stugotz, if they have to go home at the end of that and be like, well, wait a minute. We've got something structurally wrong. Because if Terrence Mann can do it to us, wait till we face a team that realizes, hey, we've got 5 3-point shooters who aren't Terrence Mann.
But the amazing thing about playoff basketball is that last night, the Philadelphia 76ers would have been better off playing George Hill than Ben Simmons. The Utah Jazz would have been better off playing Derek Favors or Royce O'Neal as opposed to Rudy Gobert because of the specific way that the game plays out.
But if you're the coach getting paid all that money, you have to do it. I mean, you can't stick to the game plan. It's playoff time.
It's very easy. I get it. Stugotz, you win all arguments because they lost. I also understand, Stugotz. Imagine if you do it and lose. Right. And people are wondering, because Popovich did it. He took Tim Duncan out of a game, and then there was a rebound, and they lost the championship. And Popovich got crushed for what the hell are you doing, Popovich? If you lose, Stugotz, you get to win all the arguments the next day about what the coach should have done.
Right.
You're asking for a specific set of ballsiness. Like you're asking for something. Take one of your best money guys. You're giving the max to that dude.
Mm-hmm. Take
him out and just put in random guy because the structural blueprint is broken because you've given money to a guy because Whittingham's absolutely right. You put anyone else in that game, they were up by 20-something points at the half.
Right.
They lost by 12, the Utah Jazz.
But a coach's job, Dan, I understand what you're saying, is to give his team the best opportunity to win the game. And if that means sitting Rudy Gobert, paying him a lot of money, then that's what it means for that specific game. And you tell Rudy that up front, hey, the matchups might not work out for you tonight. I might have to sit you. You might only play 20 to 25 minutes.
You are absolutely correct. And every time that an athlete complains about politics ruining their career, that's the reason right there, because the organization structurally has paid someone else in that spot to be valuable. And the athlete complaining about politics is saying, well, on merit, I should have gotten the opportunity. And no, the opportunity goes to your highest paid employees. Like that is, and yes, I would love to see coaches that are so brave with their leadership that they would say, bleep it. I don't care what my organization is paying anyone. I don't care what is said to be my value. I don't care what got me here. I'm going to now go Derek Favors. You're asking for something that not a lot of coaches are going to do.
Well, I'm asking coaches who I believe have job security. Like, I think Quinn Snyder has some job security there. I don't think he's getting fired. And Doc Rivers, but
after that what happened in that game,
right,
Stugotz, was so overt and so obvious that it's a fireable offense to take a look at what happened there. And you kept riding a guy where you're allowing a team to end your season taking practice gym jumpers.
Right. But Dan, these coaches did the easy thing and they're still being criticized. So you're saying, hey, make that decision. It doesn't work out. You're going to get criticized. They get criticized either way.
But I'm not talking, you can't make any decisions with the fear of criticism, because once you lose, it doesn't matter what anyone else is saying in terms of criticism. I'm simply talking about how difficult it is to go against trusting the people who got you to where you are. I'm just talking about the managing of people. Never mind the organizational pressure of this is who we value. Please play the people that we are paying. I'm talking about the specifics of how you lose a locker room and Ben Simmons forever. If in a critical spot, or Rudy Gobert, a centerpiece, as a manager of people, if you tell everyone, hey, sorry, highest paid employee, sorry, gotta sit you for the second half of our most important season, our most important game, because I don't trust you. And I'm going to tell everybody I don't trust you.
I think with the players, though, you actually gain equity. You do, because you're giving them the best chance to win, even while making the hard decision. I think with the fans, that's a tricky one. But with the players, they're saying, hey, coach is doing what he has to do. It's a better matchup for us.
But you're not applying your sensibilities to this. What if somebody were to come in here and say, hey, Stugotz, the show's better without you. It's just better. We understand.
It would hurt.
But I'm saying, but it's just better without you. Never, sorry. Apologies, but everyone now knows it. Everyone in your locker room, everyone in your arena, everyone watching. The coach has now said, we understand we're paying you a lot of money, but we absolutely do not trust you here.
This is a game, one game, in which the matchups did not favor Rudy Gobert. So there are certain shows and conversations where I absolutely sit out on, because I know you're going to have a better conversation with someone else about the particular topic you're talking about. I do it all the time, Dan. I do, because I want to win championships.
You want to make money. What are you talking about?
Well, that too. But I mean, listen, when you're on certain topics and you're talking about certain things and you bring in, back at ESPN, it might have been Mina or Sarah Spain or Dominique or Bomani, I would get out of the way, because that conversation between the two of you is going to be far better than the one you and I would have about it. So I sit. That's what I do. I don't play 48 minutes that night. I give you 22. That's what I do. Small windows. Championships. We've won a few, Dan.
Team guy.
Yeah. Boxed you in.
You boxed me in.
But the amazing thing with these decisions is the specific decision to say, like, Ben Simmons, sit out tonight, because you're not only wrecking his value for future series, but you're kind of wrecking his value around the league right now. Him being bad also will probably wreck his trade value. But like, if Quinn Snyder takes out Rudy Gobert there, you're basically saying we can't win with you. And Stugotz, all the time, your take on NBA basketball all year long with Brooklyn was they've got the best players. That basketball is a measurement of your best players. And if you go into a series analyzing Utah, you're saying, all right, it's Conley, Mitchell, and Gobert against Kawhi and Paul George, who's better? And you include Gobert in that conversation. Like, the idea that you wouldn't play your best players in basketball of all sports is kind of ludicrous.
But he gets to win all the arguments the moment Utah's season and Philadelphia's season ends in disappointment as a 1 seed. There is no rebuttal to that. Everyone gets to win arguing that the Utah Jazz and the Sixers should have done blank, because that hypothetical always wins. It never gets tested. The hypothetical, you have the losing example that has failed.
That's why I go to it.
And the other example is bulletproof. And I just say it's harder as a leader to do the things you're talking about. Otherwise, Doc Rivers or Quinn Snyder would have done them. That's the reason they didn't.
Don't lead, man. I mean, this is a life you signed up for. You signed up for a life of leadership. Do your job, your primary job as a coach is to, regardless of ego and all that stuff, give your team the best chance. That's it. Quinn Snyder did not do that. Doc Rivers did not do that. They should be ashamed of themselves. They really should. Show some courage.
It's what Stugotz gets to do today on the graves of everybody and for the rest of time. It's the wheelhouse for the rest of time. Loser doesn't know what they're doing about anything. I get to be right. Why? Because they just lost. And no one will remember 6 months from now when I have a different take that runs counter to that take, because they lost, and you get to win all arguments today.
You have to recognize when the Terrence Mann game is unfolding before your eyes, right?
No, you don't have to recognize it, but once it starts unfolding in front of your eyes, make an adjustment, for crying out loud.
Agreed. I do like the idea, though, of I do want you guys to just sort of rewind our lives, okay, 4 days. And I want Stugotz at a microphone saying the following before the game happens. Guys, I need you to understand that in tonight's game, Rudy Gobert has to go out because of Terrence Mann. I see it coming.
You got to prepare for all situations, Dan. In the event Terrence Mann has the game of his life, okay, I might have to take Rudy Gobert out. Only if Terrence Mann is 15 of 21.
Terrence Mann, who told us the story after that game of his phone being on 1% and him thinking about allowing the call that was going to invite him to a draft workout to go straight to voicemail, and he would have never gotten into the league. You have to see that coming. In an elimination game, Donovan Mitchell muttering under his breath, he missed 6 shots. And you win today. There is no disputing. Utah's season is over. And what you have now in the Western Conference Finals is Clippers against the Suns. And I wanted to talk about something else that happened.
With no Kawhi, no Chris Paul.
That's correct.
Oh, what a disaster.
It's not great. And I don't know that Suns Milwaukee is great for the league as a final series. But
Clippers Bucks, though, maybe.
Clippers Bucks might have some star power. But again, Suns Bucks, probably not great for the league. Suns specifically, I'll say this again, would be maybe the most surprising champion in the history of the sport. But what I wanted to ask you about is there was a viral video of a Suns fan at the end of the Nuggets series, where there were 2 guys who did you see this video of a fight in the stands, Stugotz, between a Suns fan and 2 Nuggets fans? The 2 Nuggets fans were standing above the Suns fan. The Suns fan grabs one of them by the neck of the shirt, and just starts wailing on both of them. And Devin Booker sent that fan, clearly won the fight. Not the kind of guy, from looking at him, that you would think might win the fight if you wanted to judge a book by its cover. But he really did a good job of fighting. Devin Booker sent him tickets to the game and a jersey. But that's not the part that I found fascinating. The part that I found fascinating is the guy who got his ass kicked decided to give an interview.
That a boy.
I thought his decision-making was bad when he got into the fight. But the giving of an interview where he appears to be wearing 3 or 4 watches. I'm not sure whether it was 3 or 4 watches.
Businessman, Dan, you need to know different time zones. What time is it? It's like at a fancy hotel.
Did you see the interview, Billy?
Yeah, it was ridiculous. He claims he did not get his ass kicked. Just a scratch.
I don't know that there's ever been a time where I have understood young people less than the granting of that interview. That you're
15 minutes of fame,
So you're
Dan.
so interested in fame that you are going to sit down with your 4 watches and your scratched nose and your jeans hanging out, revealing your underwear, and you're going to give an interview on TikTok, on which you explain that you didn't get your ass kicked when we all saw you got your ass kicked.
You would be shocked the extremely minute things that go viral on TikTok that then turn people into like TikTok celebrities, Dan. Like I couldn't even explain it to you if I tried. That's what it is now.
What did you make of his general aesthetic? Can you guys please help me with, because I feel older all the time around here, but I'm watching this interview and I'm thinking to myself, I don't believe in the history of covering sports I've ever seen someone at the center of this kind of shame say, you know what I'm going to do with this? I'm going to sit down and give an interview in which I deny that I got my ass kicked. when we all saw you get pulled down by your shirt and just hit in the face again and again without rebuttal. It's not something I've seen before.
I'm not an expert on this, but I feel like he would describe his look as having a lot of drip. You know, he's got one of those like purses things, like a satchel that's like in front of him.
So I found you saw a clip and you retweeted the clip online. There's a full 8.5-minute YouTube video of this fan giving an interview. And you're right, his underpants are hanging out from his pants. He's got like 3 watches on one wrist and 1 on the other. He's smoking a blunt at the beginning of the interview, it would appear. I mean, this guy...
He's got a lot to his look. There is, I don't mean to sound like Bill Cosby, but pull your pants up.
I wouldn't follow the Cosby model.
Yeah.
Pull your pants up.
You're giving an important interview on TikTok. You're wearing, why Jessica, why is your head in your hands right now? Is it because he didn't pull his pants up?
No, it's because of referencing Bill Cosby.
Yeah.
Oh, but I'm
It's all of it, Dan.
It's generally not a good time to be
all of
referencing
it.
Bill Cosby.
Respectability,
But-
politics.
By the way, the description on the YouTube video does not identify his name. It identifies him as Marty in 4, viral Nuggets fan, parenthetically.
Marty in 4.
Marty in 4.
Is it because the Suns fan was holding up 4 fingers to
Yeah.
show the Nuggets were going to be eliminated in 4 games? So you guys aren't you guys are not at the same kind of loss I am for the entire thing that guy was doing after getting his ass kicked and just leaning into, with drip, as Chris Cody said, the idea of I'm going to get my fame or my infamy. It doesn't matter how I get it, even if it means everyone laughing at me because I'm wearing 3 watches.
He's wearing a satchel on set, and his lavalier mic is clipped to his satchel.
Yeah, that's funny.
Like,
That's
take your
funny.
bag off before you do an interview.
It worked for Mark Sanchez, right? What's he most famous for? Butt fumble.
Yeah.
Look at him. He's all over the place now.
This one doesn't
Handsome
work for
guy.
me. This is not good pub for this guy.
Wow, this is where
This
Chris
is the
Cody
way-
draws
This is
the
the
line.
line.
This is where
Really?
You'll do anything for
You got to
attention.
disappear for a few weeks to be this guy.
You got to go into hiding. I'm not sure, by the way, Billy, that what you say is so. It worked out for Mark Sanchez. Like, I'm not,
Well, it did.
I mean, what, that he got
He's on
jobs?
Get Up
I mean,
sometimes.
it's okay, Matt. That is not a ringing success story. I mean, Matt Leinart, it has worked out for Matt Leinart. Like, you get a few TV appearances. That's the definition of something working out. You just
If
get
you asked Matt Leinart, would you take the butt fumble? I think he'd say yes. I think Matt Leinart would say yes.
I think he would too. I mean, when you think of Matt Leinart, what do you think of?
I think of USC,
Right. But when you think of Mark Sanchez, what do you think of?
but that's all I think of.
I think Orlovsky would take the butt fumble too.
No, Orlovsky's already got a thing. He ran out of the end zone. That's his thing.
I know. I
Like-
think he'd take the butt
Oh,
fumble.
so
over
you're saying
that.
we're doing comparison shopping on running out of the end zone versus butt fumble?
It's an upgrade. Yeah.
I think, if the standard is get on, get
Upgrade.
up sometimes, both of them have parlayed their thing into getting on, get up sometimes.
That can't be the standard, people.
Oh, it has
Like,
to be.
have a better standard. Come on. Come on. The standard can't be. How does one arrive at success? What do I have to do to get there? Let me put a satchel on. Let me put on 3 watches. Let me not pull up my pants. Someday, maybe I will get up I will get on, get up sometimes. Can't be the standard. Do better.
Wednesdays is good on Get Up. I like Get Up.
I'm not saying you shouldn't like Get Up. I'm saying it can't be the standard on, hey, let me have national and international shame getting stuck in an offensive lineman's ass crack and fumbling because 10 years from now I will get on Get Up.
Is that better or worse, though? Because Orlovsky gave up 2 points as opposed to the butt fumble where he just gave up
it's
possession.
better. It's better.
No, it was a touchdown, wasn't it?
No, it was not a touchdown.
safety,
he ran
yeah.
out of the end zone, and it was a safety. He did not know the size.
He gave up 2 points.
Yes,
That's
it
what
was.
No, I mean the butt fumble wasn't it returned?
Oh yes,
for,
I believe that was returned for
But
a
it's
touchdown.
absolutely worse then.
And
a lot worse.
And what ended up happening after that,
But better.
Jessica, the math you're doing there is odd because I don't think people, when they're sort of looking at Arlovsky and Sanchez, they're saying, was it worth 7 points or 2 points? It's just shame that his
-5.
It's
Plus minus.
it's my plus -5 on shame.
5 points worse then.
So this is what happened headed into the tunnel as Mark Sanchez, who, as we've said, has shaken all this off and gotten on Get Up a couple of times. This is what was happening around him as the Jets ran to the tunnel at halftime, down 34-0 at home to the Patriots.
Tebow, I want you in the second half. I want you to Tebow, save us! Tebow, save us! Sanchez, you piece! You suck, Sanchez!
Quinn Snyder has to say thank you, doesn't he?
Yes. Yes.
What kind of monster doesn't say thank you when someone helpfully offers you some lip balm that you
Also,
aggressively grab?
To question the technique on the lip balm, I feel like you're doing more damage to your lips by rubbing it that aggressively than the lip balm will cover.
A shocking take from you. Perhaps you too will one day sometimes get on Get Up. You can carve out that lane for yourself.
Are we sure that Quinn Snyder has lips?
Put her on the poll.
It's a great question.
Put her on the poll, Billy. Are you sure that Quinn Snyder has lips?
I'm still stuck on Billy praising Wednesdays on Get Up.
Yeah,
Like
specifically Wednesdays.
He was like,
Yeah.
I love watching Wednesdays.
What's better about
on
Wednesday?
Get Up."
Wednesdays.
What's going on with Hump Day? Yeah.
I was gonna say Billy's praising Wednesdays. It's the only day we're not recording right now, so it's the only day
maybe.
he watches
Okay.
it.
That's a good point. Yeah.
What happens on Wednesdays, Billy?
It's just good. Wednesdays are good on Get Up. Have you guys not seen Wednesdays on Get Up?
No.
Tell us about it.
IYKYK. KIYKY.
I hate those.
You know what I mean?
When people do those on the internet, I don't like those. That's my take.
It's better than Billy's, which is just to throw that fish on our lap and give us nothing in the way of elaboration and just stare at us.
What is the acronym?
I love that on Get Up, we have it on in the televisions here. Like day after, like the NBA gave us so much this weekend. And we're still doing on a Get Up Monday. Overreaction, Tua Tagovailoa threw 5 interceptions in practice. Overreaction, underreaction.
No.
Ooh, which was
Wow.
it?
Yeah.
I believe Dan Graziano said it was an overreaction.
No way.
Magic Johnson is now on Get Up, and he is only saying super obvious things, correct? Like that's what we're doing. Magic Johnson in studio, say obvious things.
I'd actually be interested in what it is that he's saying about Ben Simmons. I don't know if he is discussing that, but I'd be interested if Magic has anything enlightening on Ben
Why would you
Simmons.
think that Magic Johnson would?
such
Do
a
you not
fair
have
point.
enough
It is such
experience?
a fair
Really?
point.
You're waiting. So let's just help me understand what you're doing.
I realized halfway through.
You're staring at the television right now, and what you're waiting for is enlightenment. You are going to be sadly disappointed, my friend.
I did just see a pantomime left hook J, like a little baby hook from Magic there. So maybe he's saying that he needs to implement a little baby hook.
Little
into
low
his game.
post game?
I think Magic Johnson's advice to Ben Simmons would be as helpful as Shaq's, which is don't be afraid, or I'll punch you in the face. That is, what were you looking for? Enlightenment or illumination from Magic Johnson? It seems like a bad idea when the guy is famous for only saying the most obvious of things and then smiling. It seems like you would get the opposite of whatever enlightenment is.
I have a question for Stugotz. Stugotz, how would you have felt about Doc if he would have pulled Ben Simmons and he wouldn't have played like the second half? And then they ask him why, and then he gives the exact same quote where he's like, I don't know if that's someone that could win a championship as a point guard.
I would have been okay with that. I mean, he's being honest and he's giving his team the best chance, the best opportunity to win that series. That's what a coach is supposed to do. I think that should be the coach's chief responsibility.
You say that. I understand that you say that, but
easier said than done. I understand that.
It's not even easier said than done. If I had said to you, Stugotz, before the series started, is there a way that the Sixers are given the best chance of winning by not playing Ben Simmons? Your answer would not have been yes. Stugotz. It wouldn't have been. Now, he's the worst free throw shooter in the history of the sport in the playoffs, statistically. But your answer simply, if I'd asked you after the Washington series, hey, Stugotz, what's the circumstance under which the best opportunity for the Sixers to win is don't play Ben Simmons? You're not saying, hey, for the first time ever in basketball, I'm going to see a player evaporate with his courage, and I'm going to see a guy who is scared and appear to be a coward in front of me. That's what I predict, and therefore they should just be playing anyone. George Hill would be fine.
No, but Dan, you're asking me before the series or before the game. It's hard to predict that, but once it's actually happening, you have to make the in-game adjustment. That's all I'm saying. When it's actually happening right in front of your face and the season's on the line, take the guy out. That's simple.
Agreed. But you say it's that simple, and that's the part where I stop you. It's not that simple.
In the flow of a game, it should be that simple. Hey, I'm the head coach. You're not playing well. Get out. You're hurting us more than you're helping us.
If it's that simple, why did two guys who ostensibly know more about coaching in the NBA than you do, Quinn Snyder and Doc Rivers, even though Doc Rivers has some real strong blemishes on his resume, if it's that simple that afterward Doc Rivers can be asked, is he a championship point guard? And he says, I don't know. If it's that simple, why did they not do it?
It's the difficult thing to do, obviously.
But then why are you saying it's simple?
Because, Dan, it should be that simple. Doc Rivers is in his first season as the Sixers coach. He has job security. He's not going anywhere. And when you're in the game, you have to make that adjustment. I'm not saying it's easy, but you have to pull Ben aside and say, hey, this is why I'm doing it. You're not giving us a good chance.
You're saying it's simple.
Dan, it should be easy for Doc Rivers. I'm not saying like I would sit here and do it. Like you have to manage whatever it is you're saying to Ben Simmons on the front end and explain to him why it is you're doing it. And then just do it and don't worry about what happens after the game. Your season's over.
Again, Stugotz, I will say, you get to win all the arguments as it relates to the results of Utah and the Sixers. But what I'm telling you is, to my untrained amateur eye compared to these coaches, I'm watching as Rudy Gobert keeps getting stuck under the basket and Terrence Mann keeps killing them with jumpers. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, there's not a change here. There's nothing changing here. They are continuing to do this thing where they rely on their best players, which is a pretty safe thing to do throughout the history of that sport, until it evolves so quickly right in front of your eyes that we all notice at the same time. Wait a minute. The 3-time Defensive Player of the Year is useless in this situation. So useless that a nobody is about to end their season. And the coach, who's allegedly an expert in these matters, can't pull the trigger on it. Won't pull the trigger on it. He's watching the same thing I am, which is these are open jumpers that every guy in this league can make from 3 now.
He did a terrible job. I mean, I'm sorry. He's a coward. What do you want from me?
Quinn Snyder's a coward?
Yeah, Dan, that's a terrible job. Your season is on the line. Rudy Gobert should not be guarding Terrence Mann. You have Joe Ingles on the bench. You have Clarkson on the bench. You have other guys on the bench who could fill that role. That's a terrible job by Quinn Snyder.
But these are organizational decisions. Like, Quinn Snyder's not making this decision independent of himself. If in this summer, let's say Daryl Morey wants to trade Ben Simmons, he was probably pissed off last night at Doc Rivers acknowledging that he might not be able to win a championship with him. He's got to try and trade him and get the most possible. And politically, there was a time early in the season when James Harden was asking out of Houston that there was a chance that Philly was going to trade Ben Simmons for James Harden, and there was some debate over whether or not they wanted to include him. Earlier this season, they were deciding maybe we don't want James Harden because we want to keep Ben Simmons. He's 24. We've got him under contract. So, like, these are kind of fireable offenses in a way all around. And if you're Daryl Morey, you want to preserve something so when you trade him for 60 cents on the dollar, it doesn't look so bad.
You're going to have a hard time throughout the history of that sport, Stugotz, finding anywhere in that sport examples for me of my second best guy don't want to play him in critical spots. Deep in the playoffs, you're not going to.
I mean, your second best guy is a guy who can't hit free throws and can't hit a three, and your primary ball handler.
It's Simmons and Gobert. And I'm telling you that you're asking for something it's easy to ask for in retrospect. I am not saying that they made the right decision. You get to win all the arguments today. You're going to have a hard time finding for me in the history of that sport in the playoffs any examples. And you got two here in Simmons and Gobert, where the best course of action is your second. I'm going to sit Pippen. I got to sit him. He's my second best guy. He's the guy I'm paying all the money. I'm sorry. The mismatches are such. Nope, get off the court. I can't use you here. I'd rather have George Hill. I'd rather have Jordan Clarkson.
Right. I mean, I'm certain there are examples. I don't have them off the top of my head.
It's not very
there have
easy.
to be a few, though.
It's not very easy. And if you can find me outliers, it's still not very easy to find in that sport the examples of my second. Hell, look at what the Nets did with James Harden, who shouldn't have been out there. Like, he couldn't move. And the Nets are still playing him 40 goddamn minutes a game and he can't blow by anybody because he's your second best guy. And you're not going to trust Joe Harris because you saw what happened to Joe Harris when it was 111 and the best three-point shooter in the league had a wide open three when everyone's legs were dead because you trust your best guys in that sport. Like throughout the history,
James Harden, I mean, you're comparing James Harden to Ben Simmons and Rudy Gobert. The threat of James Harden being out there is enough. Like, it just is.
God, you're making fun of Ben Simmons.
I mean, getting 22 points, James Harden.
But you're making fun. He was terrible in that series.
I know he was terrible, but the threat of him being out there it's more important than Rudy Gobert being out there for the Jazz.
Before that series just played out, I had asked you, what's a better thing to bet on? Ben Simmons being good or injured James Harden being good? Healthy Ben Simmons or injured James Harden? Like, you're making these arguments, Stugotz, and I understand.
I think I'd take an injured James Harden.
I mean, that's what you're saying now because of what you just saw in that series. But I've never seen what I just saw in that series from Ben Simmons. And you can evidently predict when Ben Simmons is going to short circuit and when Terrence Mann is going to be better than Rudy Gobert.
Again, I'm not saying I could predict it, but when it happens, your job as a coach is to make an adjustment. No one can see it. No one can predict it. But when it happens, do something about it. Like, Ben Simmons ain't going to do anything about it. He's going to go out there and play and hide in a corner.
But if Stugotz, if I said to you ahead of a series between Utah and the Clippers, you're facing Kawhi, you're facing Paul George, and if I offered you the choice, this series comes down to whether Terrence Mann can beat you in a game, you'd be like, yeah, I'll take those odds. The whole thing is picking on weaknesses. That's what Gobert and Simmons are. In theory, Terrence Mann should be a weakness to the Clippers.
Okay.
And like, even if it's happening for 24 minutes, do you expect it to happen for 48? Like, I think at some point you got to make a choice, which is, yeah, Terrence Mann's going to beat me.
You tell me that before the series, and of course I'm going to take my chances. But when he's actually beating me, I have to make an adjustment.
You say that, and I understand why you're saying that. And I thought this during the Nets game as Blake Griffin kept getting these wide open threes. I thought to myself, Milwaukee will live with their season ending if Blake Griffin hits 8 threes. And then Stugotz will come on the next day and say, you got to make an adjustment. You can't let Blake Griffin beat you on threes. And you will win the argument. But I'm watching Blake Griffin take threes from the top of the key. He made a couple. And I'm like, and if Milwaukee loses that way, they will absolutely lose. They will take that result and all the criticism that endures in the offseason if the way they lose is betting on the probabilities that Blake Griffin will stop hitting those threes. And their season ended betting that Terrence Mann wasn't going to beat them. I can't.
He beat him.
He did. He did. He absolutely did.
Bad bet.
It is a bad bet, and it's why Stugotz will win forevermore after the team has lost, because then he comes in the next day and says, well, Kevin Durant, I was with him all along. I was right about Kevin.
He now knows that, Kevin.
Yes, Kevin Durant now goes into the offseason knowing, look at how happy, look at Stugotz leaning in his chair.
Helping a friend out, man.
Yes, belly out. I was his wingman throughout. I never doubted you, Kevin.
I love that the whole specter of the Durant conversation is Durant is somehow in the chase of Stugotz's respect.
It is great.
There's better than championships. Stugotz his respect.
But you know what's funny about that, Whittingham, is he is not Stugotz actually, but the Twitter egg representing Stugotz. It is. It's why he left Golden State. The Golden State would have been
For me,
winning championships for a decade. Instead, he decides, you know what? I need to leave somewhere else. And just so Stugotz doesn't think it's for him, I'm going to go to Brooklyn just to bother him. But it's for Stugotz. I'm not going to go to the Knicks. Put this on the poll as well, Billy, please, at Batard Show. What's more embarrassing, getting swept in the playoffs or winning one game in the playoffs and celebrating in the streets?
Closing down traffic in New York City.
We did that.
Oh boy.
Oh,
Stugotz is taking an earned victory lap today. Sports is filled with losers who can be criticized. Mike Schur is confused by Stugotz's take. He's writing in, so the way to earn respect is to lose on your own, but if you lose, you don't get rings, which is the only thing that matters.
Lose with Jeff Green, right? Losing with Jeff Green while scoring 50 points is better than winning with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. Yep, I said it.
Okay, so here's Nick Wright. First things first. I'm sure he's going to agree vigorously with this. Let's see what you've got, Nick. What is your opinion here? Nick has just emerged. He is demanding to be heard because what? Because Stugotz
I demanded. Okay. I called in a favor. I was like, I don't have Stugotz or Dan's cell phone numbers. Mike Ryan, who is my personal connection to the show, is not here. So I called the people at Twitter and was like, hey, for 30 seconds, can you make Dan follow me on Twitter? They're like, why? I was like, I got to send him a DM. You can fix it after. So he did. And I invited myself on the show. I got a question for you, Dan, as you patronize my guy Stugotz, who has the obviously correct take.
Thank you.
Do you like action movies? Are you a fan of any of them?
Yeah, I like them, but not, not many of them.
Right. I understand. You're more of a, deeper thought, No Country for Old Men type of thing. I get it. But like Die Hard, you enjoyed it, right?
Yes.
You know why Die Hard was great? Because it was one Bruce Willis against 12 terrorists.
Boom.
You know what action movie sucks? If there's 4 Bruce Willis, 2 terrorists, and it's like, well, he's supposed to do that. And that people yearn to see their heroes as underdogs. That is one of the things we like. So seeing and a loss creates a greater sense of awe, fulfillment, and astonishment for many than when it's like, well, he's got 3 of the 4 best players on the court. So of course they won. So yeah, this is similar to, for a lot of people, LeBron's 2015 finals loss with Mozgov and Delhi was more impressive than his 2012 or 13 finals victories in Miami. Like, it's not a bad take. It's actually the right take, and I doff my proverbial cap to Stugotz.
Well, thank you, Nick.
So, Nick, would you say a super team would be like the Expendables in this situation?
It's not just the Expendables. Aren't those superhero movies, the Justice League stuff? Like, don't superheroes get together all the time? And we love those action movies. The Fast and the Furious doesn't have a bunch of people that are huge stars.
Careful.
Listen, I'm not familiar with the Fast and the Furious franchise, but here's the thing about the superhero movies you mentioned. That's make-believe. Where Die Hard, it's real people.
So action movies you're talking about are real. Okay, that's right.
Jason Bourne against a lot of people.
Right.
Bruce Willis or John McClane against a lot of people. John Wick against a lot of people and horses. It's a simple formula that Durant fell into, and now it's like, wow, look at what he did. That's amazing. It was great, which is why, like, the guy went 0 for 6 in overtime and airballed the game-winning shot. Nobody's going to criticize him because it's like, we get it. We understand you did everything you could have done. You played a brilliant basketball game. And now if he had 0 rings, then obviously it would be looked at differently, but he's already checked. You're just like in life or in sports. You know what? I'm going to use an uncomfortable analogy, but let's do it. Dan, you'd accomplished almost everything professionally except for this. So you wanted to check off this box. It's like, okay, I've won all the newspaper awards, had a great radio show, had a great television show. I've done all this with corporate backing. What's the box left to check? Let me try to do something on my own.
Forgive us, your internet connection is a little bit spotty. What I would say to you and to everybody as we're talking about this is, and I don't know how it is you guys extend your respect for others. I have never questioned the greatness of Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant isn't any greater to me today than he has been at any point in terms of how great he is at basketball. He did not show me anything that I did not think that he was capable of. He's one of the greatest scorers ever. He makes it look easier than anyone I've ever seen play the sport. And it doesn't matter to me whether he's got 4 superstars or 1 superstar. He's still one of the best players ever. It doesn't change the measurement or the respect for me one iota.
But when you're one of the, well, Dan, first off, you did see him do something he rarely does, which is carry Jeff Green around, which is carry Blake Griffin and aging Blake Griffin around.
The only reason I haven't seen it is because he played with Russell Westbrook and he's always played with stars before. This necessitated him being someone who scored more, but he's every bit as great as I thought he was. There's no distinction for me. There's no difference for me. I'm not surprised that Kevin Durant can score against anybody. The man averages 30 points a game.
But what Nick and I are saying is when you have that kind of talent, Dan, superior talent, all-time talent, you don't need help. You don't need recruits. You don't need to go seeking a championship. Like John McClain was fine on his own. Can you imagine if he called in John Wick and Marion Cobretti? I mean, think about it.
Well, let me ask you this, Dan. I'm not surprised by the scoring. You weren't a little surprised in Game 5 with the passing and in Games 5 and 7 with the 48 minutes and the 53 minutes? I was a little surprised.
Nick, what I'm surprised by is that after that injury, he could be the same player that he was before. That after that injury, he could play those kinds of minutes, but he wasn't showing me anything that... Was he showing you something you didn't think he was capable of?
Well, it's not that I didn't. I actually thought he could do it, but I didn't know it. Now we know it.
Yes.
It's similar to
All right, I can't. What am I supposed to keep doing with this as an internet connection? It's the third time that this has happened. What do we do? Can we get it to be any better?
Nick, why don't you try disconnecting from the Zoom and calling back in? Blow on the cartridge as well.
Okay.
See if that works.
That's how we're going to do it. All right, we'll try and bring Nick back. Because
it's odd that I have someone that agrees with me, and here he is getting cut off. I feel like someone sabotaged us.
I do find it interesting that Stugotz is willing when the measurement has always been rings.
Yeah.
It's the measurement.
Mm-hmm.
This time the measurement is second round playoff loss. It's the definition. Stugotz just made Andy Dalton an all-time great. Ginger category, admittedly, by simply getting to the playoffs.
Right.
The measurement is wins.
I didn't make him an all-time great. I mean, as you pointed
made him
out,
top 10 redhead of all time.
Well, go ahead. Give me 9 others. I mean, seriously. Red Rifle.
You're missing an important factor here, though, Dan. QR quality rings. And right now, KD does not have a ton of quality rings. He just has rings.
Right.
Meaningless
rings.
He doesn't have any QR. He only has a couple of R's and no R's in Stugotz's personal record.
MRs. I mean, I'm willing to upgrade to MRs. Meaningless rings.
Well, is that an upgrade? I thought that's where we already were. I didn't think that was.
I'm at no rings right now.
Okay, you're at no rings, and you're thinking about based on a second round playoff loss. You're thinking
the
of
best I've ever seen him play, man. I saw the fire in his eyes.
So you are thinking of upgrading him to meaningless rings, which is a step short of meaningful rings, or the highest compliment is quality rings. I just want to make sure I have these measurements right.
Quality rings. Jordan has 6 of them.
Okay.
He would have had 8 if he didn't take 2 years off.
Okay, so but that is, I thought that was the measurement. I didn't think that Jordan got any credit whatsoever for all of those playoff losses before he got all the rings.
Like Olajuwon does not have quality rings. The only reason he won those rings was because Jordan took the 2 years off. They're not quality rings. I mean, they're
Go ahead, Nick.
I'm sorry,
Nick,
Akeem.
does Olajuwon have any QRs?
Well, listen. Yes, his first one, he had no help. Stugotz.
Yeah,
come on, it's Robert Horry and it's Kenny Smith. There's no other stars there. That's one of the best rings ever. The Jordan would have won 8 straight is obviously a terrible take, but I'm not gonna go. I want to be Team Stugotz here. So it's a terrible take. It's just an outrageous take, and it doesn't stand up to the scrutiny of any history or analysis whatsoever.
You had him slowing down after 3, huh?
What I was trying to say before the internet stopped me from being great, and now I'm on my phone. I hope this is far better. Is Dan, did you not get a different sense of Steph this year than you had previously?
We have been having, Nick, this conversation since the Sacramento Kings started losing piece by piece. When the Sacramento Kings had Weber and Stojakovic and Bibby, do you remember how year by year they'd lose a piece, and then all of a sudden Bibby was a little bit better, Stojakovic was statistically better, but the team ended up being worse. So yes, of course, when Steph has to carry the whole thing, he statistically is better, and their team stinks. Like that. He's great, but what happens? They're an 8 seed because it happened. Nick, we just saw this happen. We saw it just happen with Paul George. Kawhi goes out. Hey, look, Paul George is better than we thought. Harden and Kyrie are not right. Oh, look, Durant is better than we thought he was. Oh, look, Devin Booker just had a triple-double first time. What was the difference? Chris Paul's out. Of course, if I give somebody who's great all the usage rate, they're going to be great and their team's going to be lesser.
Okay, yes, sometimes. And sometimes guys just crumble under it. Sometimes guys just can't do it. Like the only question left with Steph this year, we all knew that if you took Steph off the Warriors in 15 and 16 and put Russ or Harden in their place, the Warriors would have been worse. But there was a legitimate question, was the opposite also true? If you would have put Steph on the 2017 Thunder, the team that Russ had the average of the triple-double, won the scoring title, led to the playoffs, lost. Could he have done that? Or because he's a little smaller and not as athletic, would it not have translated? It was an unknown. We then got to see it, and it's like, oh, he can do everything. You seem to be confident that all the great players can do everything. I like to see it. With Durant, we got to see it.
Nick, you'll see it every time. Kevin Love was this in Minnesota, and his team stunk. And then he goes and he's the second or the third best player. And what happens? They end up winning a championship. Chris Bosh did this in Toronto, and his team stunk. Like every guy in that league who is actually great. Give me all the guys who haven't done it when you've seen them crumble under it.
But LeBron won with Kevin Love. Like he won an NBA championship. Like Kevin Durant's problem is, Dan, he gets too much help. It's like it's not enough just to have one player. He needs Draymond Green, he needs Klay Thompson, he needs Steph Curry, and then he needs James Harden and Kyrie Irving. Like Kyrie was enough. Go win with Kyrie.
He doesn't need anybody to score 30 points a game for his entire prime. He doesn't need anybody to do that. He averages that. It's his average game is to be better at scoring than just about anyone ever, no matter who his teammates are. Like, we know this about him.
So to answer your question, I think a good example is Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving will always score, right? But will you win it all? I guess you're making the point is the good stats, bad team guy. I think Durant showed you this series that I know they ended up losing in overtime by a shot. But I think he showed you this series that, I mean, literally, if he wore size 17, which he does wear, that's the crazy thing from this weekend is he wears size 17 in real life and 18 in the games because it makes him his feet feel better. That's a real thing he talked about like 3 years ago. I think the Nets are the favorites to win the title right now with no Kyrie and no Harden. I didn't think that would have been the case 3 weeks ago because I'm like, as great as Durant is, can he be the playmaker? Can he play 45 minutes in the playoffs? You knew it without seeing it. I needed to see it. I think Stugotz needed to see it. I don't know how you're so confident of it without having seen it.
I don't view sports. I've said this before, right? It's the idea, to me, it's a childish way of viewing sports, that to be the child hiding behind the couch who doesn't see that his feet are out, and so someone can see their feet, and because that child believes that no one can see them, that is so. I don't need to see it to know that something is so. Like Kevin Durant is one of the best scorers ever. If I put him on any team ever, Nick, you know good and well, that team's going to be relevant. Are they going to be championship good? I don't know. I still don't know if that would have been enough. It wasn't enough to beat Milwaukee. I don't know that it would have been enough to beat Phoenix or the Clippers. It was good enough to beat Milwaukee.
Yeah, okay. Nobody is denying that he's one of the greatest scorers ever. I think that across sports, let me ask one other thing because I feel like I'm frustrating you and I don't mean to, especially because I invited myself onto your show.
It's only your internet connection that's frustrating me. It's not your argument.
And you agreeing with me.
Do you feel fully confident that Mike Trout would be a great playoff performer?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know how you can. Based on what? Based on what?
He's great at baseball.
So you don't think there is such a thing as a guys who, in the crucible of the moment, get worse?
In small samples, there are in randomness like baseball. In basketball, there's very little. It's why what Ben Simmons did yesterday and in that series is so confusing. What reference points do you have for someone just totally collapsing everything they've ever been, where you're looking at something and you can see that someone is scared?
Yeah, usually in basketball, the great players, it doesn't happen to. And Ben ate himself alive there. I guess the kid looking at his feet thing, I understand the point, but I think in sports we have enough examples of certain guys who get better in the biggest spots, certain guys who stay the same, and certain guys who get 5 to 10% worse, which is all that separates the great from the all-time greats. That when we get a piece of not speculation, concrete evidence that, what LeBron did in 2018 with those Cavs post Kyrie, KD could have done something similar. That's valuable for KD. And you knew it evidently before I did. You were certain of it. I wasn't. Like I did want to see it because he was drafted to the team and they got Russ. He then chose the team with Steph and Clay. He then chose the team with Kyrie, and then they went and got Harden. So it's not even like that we had snapshots of it. We didn't even have moments of it. Now we do. We have half a series of it against a great team.
Dan, he was celebrated in a way after Game 5 and Game 7 in a way he's never been celebrated before. Universally, Kevin Durant was. Like, more celebrated than him winning Finals MVP and winning a championship with the Warriors.
But I believe that's an indictment of the people viewing it, not of him. I think his talent is so singular, Nick, that I'm a bit shocked to hear you say that Kevin Durant, as the lead player on a team, can't make just about anyone feel championship good the way that LeBron did. You know, when we knew he was going to lose in the finals, but what did he end up doing? He ended up shooting that one year, I don't know which year it was, where he ended up shooting like 35%, but he was taking 40 shots, playing an irresponsible basketball for him. He plays smart basketball. He was playing a reckless, inefficient basketball, but we all felt like he could do that. I didn't need to see it. Did you?
Well, yeah. Well, with LeBron, no, because we had seen it in 07. Because we had seen it from LeBron his first 7 years in Cleveland. You can just say because he's an all-time great, he could do it. Kobe couldn't do this. Kobe couldn't. Kobe tried, he couldn't. Kobe couldn't do it. As great as he was, the 3 years of Kobe's career, he didn't have a Hall of Famer alongside him. He missed the playoffs once and didn't get out of the first round of the 2 other years. He scored a bunch of points, couldn't carry. I felt like Durant showed you it bounce here, bounce there, could have carried them through the championship.
Your argument, just to be clear, Nick, your argument is if I haven't seen it, it can't be so.
No, my argument is that if you haven't seen it, you don't know it is so in sports. You are definitively saying you knew it.
But what I know is his greatness, Nick. What I know is that you're telling me that Kevin Durant, because for 10 years he has never been on a team where he's the only guy. Because he has never been on a team where he's the only guy, that he can't be an all-time great who carries a team.
He didn't do it with Westbrook. I mean,
but they were great, Stugotz. You know they were great. What do you mean he didn't do it? He got further than this.
Dan, the last time
Westbrook, he got further than here with Westbrook.
The last time we saw him in a similar situation, he was up 3-1 against Golden State, and they lost the next 3. And then he left and went to Golden State. So he didn't do it. I mean, he got to the finals, but he didn't do it.
He got further than here. What do you mean didn't do what? He didn't get eliminated in the second round.
I mean, what you saw in Game 5 is something I've never seen from Kevin Durant before. I mean, we're all sitting here trying to tell you.
You've seen it before.
I've never seen him carry around Jeff Green and Blake Griffin.
The reason you've never seen it is because he's never been on a team where there isn't a second guy.
Right, but we saw it for a night, and he looked incredible, like the best Kevin Durant I've ever seen.
He's looked, I mean, I don't know what to tell you guys. Like, he's looked pretty great the entirety of his career under all circumstances.
There's also a season where he didn't have a second guy. It was 2013-14 when Russell Westbrook got hurt ahead of the season. And he won the MVP that year and had multiple games where he's in the 40s. He carried Oklahoma City deep into the playoffs that year, which, considering he was without Russell Westbrook for most of it, was really damn impressive.
Hold on. To be fair, Chris, that Russ Russ did not miss that full season. Russ was there for the playoffs. Durant in Oklahoma City played one full series without Russell Westbrook. It was against Memphis after Patrick Beverley blew out, it messed up Russell's knee in the first round against Houston. So I'm not sure what year you're talking about in comparison, but KD only played one playoff series ever without Russ in OKC. It was the second round against Memphis, and he played one in Golden State without Steph. It was against the Spurs, but he also obviously had Clay. It is surprising to me, Dan, that like you, having watched sports as long as you have, are totally discounting to me, you're discounting the mental aspect of expectations, pressure, and circumstances. Like, I think there is no argument to be made in the world that by an eye test, Peyton Manning is a far better quarterback than Tom Brady, except for the fact that one guy clearly upped his game repeatedly in the big spots, and the other guy had some of his worst moments in the biggest spots. That's not small sample size luck. That is, some people rise to the occasion, some people don't. And for Durant, when there was the built-in confidence of knowing, if I don't have it tonight, my other guys can carry me, that changes the circumstances to allow you to achieve, at least to me. And not even to mention just the pure, can a guy whose body is built like that play 48 minutes? That you can't say you knew. There's no way you knew he could play 48, and he did it off an Achilles. It's remarkable.
Outside of Barry Bonds and perhaps Peyton Manning, I think you're going to have a hard time finding anyone who has historic kinds of excellence that you would make these claims about.
Chris Paul.
James Harden.
Paul.
I disagree on Chris Paul. Chris Paul's been great. But what about Harden, Dan? Tell me.
Harden has not been good in the playoffs so far, and I believe that if I gave him a representative sample over the course of his prime, that would correct itself.
Guys played like 140 playoff games. It's like more than it's almost 2 seasons in the playoffs. I don't know. I mean, okay, we fundamentally disagree on that. We can agree on Jessica's terrible squid take if you'd like to end this on a happy thing.
Why is it terrible?
Come on, Jessica. You had octopi right there. They can change color. They can shape shift. They can do a lot of things. They're literal aliens. Pablo explained all this to you guys, and you went squid. Come on.
Okay, but like a squid and octopus, what's the difference, right? Like Squidward, they're all
Okay,
kind of the
well,
same
there
thing.
you go.
Like they do that thing.
Can't argue that, Nick.
That's what octopus.
Good luck, Nick.
You know what? I've been checkmated. Jessica, Dan tried to checkmate me for 15 minutes. I kept hitting him with karate chops. What about Peyton Manning? What about Mike Trout? What about James Harden? You did it with the squid in 30 seconds. You got it. You got me.
So you know that Mike Trout won't be good in the playoffs because you haven't seen it?
Dan, you are arguing in a, like I would almost say, a political manner here, which is twisting my words. It's not what I'm saying. I am not saying I know something won't happen. I am saying I don't know that it will. I'm saying you seem to be certain Mike Trout, because he's one of the greatest regular season players we've ever seen, that will carry over into the postseason. I'm saying I do not think sports work that way. I would like to see it to know it. Would I bet on him being great in the postseason? I would. Would I, am I as certain of it as I am with Mookie Betts? Of course not. Of course not. Why would I be? I've seen one. I haven't seen the other.
You're arguing about the differences, though, between probabilities and certainties. And I would bet every time on the probabilities of historic greatness being historically great in moments that call for historic greatness. That's how these people get remembered that way. Nick, you're the guy out here who's always arguing about, he's always arguing that LeBron is better than Jordan. And both of those guys got all of these questions before they proved it to you that they could actually do it. Both of the guys that are in the argument of greatest you've ever seen in that sport got the same questions until people saw it. And then we always back away from these guys when they do it. We always question the guys guy, and then we can have the outliers, whether it's Chris Paul or James Harden or Peyton Manning. We can have the outliers, but the guys who are historically great are the ones who do it with excellence in the playoffs. And then they show you they've done it, and they quiet all the critics.
Yeah, which is why for Jordan, it's such a shame he never showed he could do it without Scotty. I mean, 1-9 in the playoffs. Am I right, Stugotz? Without Scotty. I'd like to see him win some without Scotty. Yeah, but also the guys, like, why is Akeem Olajuwon unquestionably greater than Patrick Ewing? Well, their regular season numbers not that different. It's because one guy upped his game every postseason, and one guy tended to get a little bit worse. Why is Dwyane Wade one of the 25 greatest players in league history? He ever win an MVP? Nope. Did he ever win a scoring title? One, I think. So why is he, without a doubt, one of the greatest players we've ever seen? Because of his finals performances, particularly that first one. Like why was Kawhi talked about as arguably the greatest player ever? Was it his regular season success? Nope. He had like 2 first-team All-NBAs. Is because when other guys got worse, he got better. That's a real thing in sports. We see it all the time. Look, what do you think, Dan? What do you think of Lamar Jackson? Are you fully confident that he's going to have what is going to be considered a great career? Are there nervous?
I have a hard time with him just in general because it's a different math, the way that he plays the sport. Like him in general, he confuses me in some of the same ways that Ben Simmons did last night. I don't understand what it is that I'm watching with Lamar Jackson because I'm watching a hybrid quarterback whose passing accuracy isn't his passing strength is not what carries him all the time.
Right, but is it also true that sports are a little bit different almost across the board, maybe except for baseball, in the postseason? And I'm not talking about pressure. I'm talking about how teams defend you, schemes, all of that. Like, it's the same thing that we have seen that, okay, if you can build an entire game plan around stopping this one guy, can he still kill you? And I think, to me, that stuff's interesting. And I know all the LeBron folks on Twitter were dying for me. They would tweet me all weekend, oh, go after KD the way people would go after LeBron, 0 for 6 in overtime, airballed the game winner. And the answer to that is obviously the way people went after LeBron was illogical, and you shouldn't do that to anybody. But also, I was listening to Stugotz this morning, and I was like, I totally agree with that. I knew Kevin Durant was unbelievable at basketball, one of the greatest scorers ever. Him going to Golden State did not teach me anything. This series taught me something. So to me, that's fascinating.
I find amazing after that series, the specifics. Not only did it teach you something, but the respect for Durant has been so universal and so consensus that the previous guy that you were doing that to, Giannis, everyone ignores that he was kind of great in that game too. Like it's being ignored that the winner in that game that you've been questioning about his ability to do that in a game 7, that he was also great in that game while playing an absurd number of minutes.
But we're also telling you, KD also won in his own way. That's it. There is a difference, Dan. When everyone knows you have to score 50 for the team to have a chance, everyone is geared up to try and stop you. And you still go out there and you give him 50. I mean, it's a big difference. But he won, and you can't fall back on Steph or Clay.
He won the MVP the year that everyone was wondering whether or not he could do that or not. Nick, do you have anything else? Because I am actually curious what it is that you thought the historical precedent of what you saw with Ben Simmons. Like I hate doing choke, soft, coward, and I just thought that you're not going to get anyone to plant their flag on defending Ben Simmons today because of how weird it was to see someone who's allegedly a superstar. You have to take him out of the game.
Well, yeah, like and you guys can look it up. I don't know when it was. There was a game this season against Utah where Ben Simmons scored 42 points. Joel wasn't out there, and they ended up losing that game, but he had 42 points, almost a triple-double, and was dominant. Now he was dominant against fraudulent Rudy Gobert. There's another guy. Tell your advance. Tell Tom when you have Tom Haberstroh on. Have him tell me about what an MVP Rudy Gobert is. That's another story. Let me stay on this. Ben got in his own head. I think that's pretty clear, right? And I do think Ben's in a rough spot in that if you took the 15 best players in the league, the two worst to pair with Ben are Giannis and Embiid. If you paired him with Dame, if you paired him with Steph, if you paired him with any perimeter guy, it would really unlock who he is. And Trey was 5 for 23. A lot of that was Ben. But I've never seen a guy take 0 shots in the fourth quarter in 4 straight games. We had Antoine Walker on the show, and he brought up an amazing point. He was like, how do you fall in love with basketball without enjoying shooting basketballs? He was like, that's my favorite thing about the game. He's like, how could you fall in love with basketball?
That is such a great name, though. That is such a great name to summon. Like Antoine Walker. Antoine Walker will live several.
We noticed that he loves shooting.
Never met a shot he didn't like.
Several lifetimes without understanding why others don't like to shoot.
Yeah, but it's I think you have to trade him. I also think that if you're my pal Daryl Morey, it's a bitter pill. You were this close to trading Ben for James Harden, and now you're going to trade him for CJ McCollum? Like, if you do have to trade him this offseason, you're trading him at his nadir, right? You're trading him at his absolute low point, and I don't think that's what anybody planned to do, but I don't know how you run this back. I also don't – if you're Philly, you could have won the title with home court throughout and with never having to beat LeBron, Anthony Davis, Kawhi if he's out, Jokic, KD, Harden, Steph, Kyrie, Dame. You could have won the title without ever having to beat any of those guys. And you were basically pretty healthy. And to blow games 4 and 5 the way they did, and then in game 7 at home, hold Trey to 5 of 23 and lose, that's an all-time bad one, man. An all-time bad one.
Utah's structural blueprint. The game's evolved beyond it right now. It just happened. We just saw it happen where 3-time defensive player of the year, never mind, they're dinosaurs.
Yeah. And by the way, this is why I lost my mind during the year when because like I venture into both parts of basketball Twitter. I know the analytics. I appreciate the analytics, but I also think the analytics are not everything. And when I saw a guy who I think is brilliant, John Hollinger, argue that Rudy Gobert was the second most valuable player in the league this year. When I saw smart people argue Rudy Gobert is a better defensive player than Dwight Howard, what they were bringing to me were Raptor and rating. And it's like, okay, I like the analytics like true shooting percentage, effective field goal percentage. Those are just the numbers looked at slightly differently. Some of these defensive metrics that are created stats that reminds me of when ESPN originally came out with the total QBR. When they first created that formula, the greatest game in their database was a Charlie Batch 141-yard game. It's like, oh, guess what? Our formula's broken. So they took it back and they retooled it. Some of these defensive metrics, they don't understand what they don't understand. And Rudy Gobert in the postseason, I'm going to try to do this off the top of my head, but in 2017, got played off the court by Golden State. In 2018, the Rockets did it to him. In 2019, the Rockets did it to him. Last year, 3 straight games against Denver. Remember when Jamal Murray was like the 9th best player in the league? No, he wasn't. He was just playing Rudy Gobert. And now Terrence Mann is sleepy damn Floyd. Like, that, you can't, and this is where you got to listen to the players. Because the players been telling you for 3 years Rudy Gobert is not a great defensive player. And the media is like, oh, no, he's the best in the league by far. No, he's not. And Quinn Snyder evidently didn't know substitutions were allowed. That was a travesty. Up 25 in the second half is a travesty. It's as bad as it gets.
A fireable offense?
Yeah, of course. I'd fire a lot of coaches, Dan. I'm telling you right now, if I were the Nets, I'd call in KD and I'd be like, listen, I know you're going to be upset. Here's a hard drive of Bitcoin to try to make you feel better. But we're firing Steve Nash and bringing in Rick Carlisle. Because Steve Nash does not know what he's doing. And you guys could have won the title this year with Rick Carlisle. I'm just telling you, There's a lot of coach openings if I'm running a lot of these teams.
It's a great
Not
day
very
to
good.
fire a coach. It really is.
really
I mean,
is.
there's so many options. I mean,
Thank you, Nick. First things first is where you will catch him, and you should because he knows more than most. Thank you, Nick, for being on with us.
Thank you. Sorry for the bad internet connection. I blame Billy.
It's time for Stugotz to share his game notes. No one in the media will tell you what happened better than my boy Stu.
Dan, many question the contract he was giving. He made matters worse by getting off to a really slow start. Lately, though, he's been showing signs of life. But Dan, after going 3 for 4 with 2 homers, 2 runs scored, and 5 RBIs, make no mistake about it, Francisco Lindor is back. Ribbies. Dan, the Metropolitans. Good.
Yeah, they're in first place.
Really
And
good.
Lindor's been terrible all season until recently.
He's back, though.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
You missed the memo. The K and Kawhi no longer standing for Clippers collision course. The LA Clippers are better without Kawhi Leonard.
Oh, no.
If you had the big 3 of Paul George, Reggie Jackson, and Terrence Mann as the big 3 that would get the Clippers to their first ever conference finals, congratulations. Nothing, and I mean nothing, sums up Chris Paul's career quite like him sitting at home, not helping his current team play against the team he could never get to a conference final.
That's it. So Chris Paul was great during the second round, but because he missed the first game, you're right back to killing Chris Paul?
Yep. Then again, Chris Paul is used to sitting home this time of year. Dan, since the Hawks fired Lloyd Pierce, they are 34-13 and just 4 wins away from the NBA Finals.
You think they're going to do it?
Hell no. Oh, man, but Nate McMillan has to be the coach of the year, right?
I don't know. I thought you said Thibs was the coach of the year.
That's right. I forgot
You
about
forgot about
Thibs.
that?
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah. Back to Chris Paul for a second. Speaking of Paul Ricard. Dan, you know what the V in Max Verstappen stands for?
No.
Vroom, vroom. Guy could drive.
Vroom, vroom.
Vroom, vroom. You got it.
Yes.
You know the sound you make when you're, you know.
Yes, I believe that's onomatopoeia.
Vroom, vroom.
Onomatopoeia, I believe is what that is.
You have to do this like you're holding a handlebar when you do vroom, vroom, right? You have to do that.
I don't know what that was. That looked more like a sock puppet.
Where was I?
Vroom, vroom.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Thank you. I'm not sure what the poor sideline reporter did to the goal scorer for Hungary to have her work table ruined. Les Blues with a shock draw to the Hungarians, Dan. I hate these soccer ones where apparently the pandemic isn't happening. You know what the
That's Le Bleu, Dan?
Le Bleu?
You should stop writing those soccer ones if you hate them so much.
I know, I should. It's on me. You're right. Dan, you know what the D in Devin Booker stands for?
I do not.
It stands for doesn't need Chris Paul. How about that?
Yeah.
That guy is good. Suns, Bucks, otherwise known as Adam Silver's nightmare. Suns, Hawks, otherwise known as the thing that might make Adam Silver quit. The G in Gallinari stands for grapefruits.
Guillermo, put it on the poll, please. Will Suns Hawks make Adam Silver quit?
That is so dreadful. I mean,
It'd be so great. Just
all the opportunities the NBA.
He just quits right before the finals.
The Deer District, the rare scene that looks fun, yet doesn't seem safe. Process this. Reggie Jackson did something Chris Paul could not. Mr. June. Ryan Lochte.
Wait, are you just killing Chris Paul for getting COVID? Like
I don't know what I'm doing with Chris Paul. He hasn't played a game yet.
He hasn't done anything other than
Well, he didn't play.
I know, but when It seems like
You're right, he hasn't done
you've
anything.
Taken the opportunity that he's gotten COVID to just rip him.
He even got vaccinated.
He
Like, he did everything he could do.
Great in the second round.
Where was he?
He got COVID.
He was watching at home like he always is. Ryan Lochte. It was a good, but oftentimes strange run. The L in Lochte stands for Loon. Derek Carr said he only wants to play quarterback for the Raiders. Otherwise, he would quit. Derek, if they can get Aaron, you quitting isn't going to stop them.
That's true.
I mean, what is he talking about? By the way, I want to challenge him on that. Raiders, please get Derek Carr. I want to see if Derek Carr quits. I do.
Please get Aaron Rodgers.
Yes. Dan, I was flipping through the channels over the weekend and noticed NBC is still trotting out Mike Milbury. Roy, is that possible?
Can't be.
Why?
They got rid of him.
He was back out there. Mike Milbury is back.
Was he? Are you sure?
I think so.
Are you sure about that?
Now we got to look it up. Now he's leaking confidence. He's like Ben Simmons all of a sudden. Did I get this wrong?
I think he turned down hockey coverage for the first time in 6 months and just assumed that Milbury was there.
It's possible.
I saw him.
All right. We will get to the bottom of this. Roy will have an update for us at the end of this.
The Y in Quinn Snyder stands for, why'd you leave Rudy Gobert on Terrence Mann for so long? I got that from Mike Scher. Stugotz, get your own material. I love that Mike Scher is sending me weekend observations. So amazing. Also, who the fuck is Terrence Mann? Bit aggressive. Who is it? I feel like Steve Ballmer celebrated the entire night without the aid of alcohol or drugs, just adrenaline and some Diet Coke. Really do. Somebody tell the Portuguese to mark Robin Gosens and Joshua Kimmich. Played in acres of space.
Yeah. Someone make sure to learn Portuguese so that you can tell them that.
Joshua Kimmich.
Close. But they were playing in acres of space. You agree with me on that, right? I mean, just acres upon acres.
Just acres.
The Lakers fired their trainer. The Lakers did it.
Oh, my God. Oh, man.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that's going to fix it.
The Lakers fire, right. Makes sense, though. I mean, when your best player tells you months in advance what's going to happen and you do nothing to prevent it, you get fired. Primetime U.S. Open golf. Heaven. John Rahm. Stones. Robert Griffin III is at the center of a bidding war between ESPN and Fox. Is there anything better than being at the center of a bidding war? Congrats, Robert.
Put it on the poll,
RG3.
Guillermo. Is there anything better than being at the center of a bidding war?
It's a good feeling. I wouldn't know about it. It's enough with England already. Every major tournament, they get all this hype. Everyone says it's a golden generation. And then they draw 0-0 at home with the Scots. The Three Lions, please. Billy Gilmore is a cracking midfield player, though.
I'm surprised at your obsession with soccer.
It's amazing.
Just moments
For
after
something that's dead, yeah. Kevin Durant, I had far more respect for you. That was far. More respect for you.
It was really fart.
It was weird.
It sounded like you said you had fart more respect for him.
Far more respect for you after that Game 7 loss than I did after any win you had with the Golden State Warriors. We're getting there, me and KD. Baby steps. Still, though, no titles in my personal record book. Is it just me, or is there an influx of flies?
What?
Yeah, more flies than ever. Ask anyone. I'm serious. Yep.
Okay, but just
All right,
everywhere.
Tony's shaking his head back. The flies are everywhere, man.
Okay.
Flies are back.
Okay. Flies are back.
Yeah.
Put it on the poll, Guillermo.
Well put.
Are flies back, or is the better question? Have you noticed an influx of flies?
Flies are back. How about that? Golden Knights. Oh, the Islanders. Oh, Lord Stanley. Collision course.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. I think.
Yeah, I think
I'm nervous.
You were afraid of these.
Kucherov is hanging around.
The Lightning are unfair and terrifying last week. That did not sound confident. That was the least confident collision course I've ever heard.
Robin Lehner. Saving the day emphasis on save.
Leonard.
Whatever. Dan, one might say the buck stops here for the Brooklyn Nets. It's so bad. Who wrote that? What? In two of the biggest Game 7s in NBA history, James Harden is 4 of 25 from 3. That's all. That's all I got for you. Ryan McDonough, Tampa Bay Lightning, shooting with a stick against a Barry Trotz coach team in a must-win game is simply not enough. Next time, bring a gun. Ryan Bullock, Islanders, greatest play in the history of hockey. Did you see this, Dan?
Here we go again.
Did you see?
Here, the thing that
Roy.
happened minutes ago is
Roy.
the greatest thing in the history of anything.
You are a hockey expert on this show, okay? Was that the greatest play in the history of hockey?
Given the circumstances, yes. With less than 5 seconds to go in regulation.
Thank you.
Up by 1. Yes, that's one.
I mean, a whirling dervish by Ryan McDonough. He whirls around, gets the goalie out of place, and then Bullock comes in out of nowhere to make a save, prevents the game from going to overtime. If it goes to overtime, points or Kucherov, they win that game, Dan.
Yeah, because Kucherov is always lurking.
He's always around, this Kucherov, except the regular season.
In all of hockey,
got
it's like,
Gretzky back.
it's like a haunting. Kucherov is lurking somewhere.
On Saturday night, Game 4 of the Islanders and Lightning, combined with Game 7 of Nets Bucks, made my head explode. James Jones is a GM and the executive of the year.
Yep.
JJ.
He got Chris Paul. That's why you didn't notice it, because you didn't respect it.
Couple of J's cutting it up. All of a sudden, Paul George is Michael Jordan. MJ, good luck trying to have a conversation about anything other than Game 5 with Barry Trotz between now and the time the puck drops. Hey, ask Trotz, what are you having for lunch? He'll tell you Game 5. That's it. I mean, I love Trotz.
You have a weird obsession with him.
2 games away from the cup. According to the dailymail.com, among Republicans, Vladimir Putin has a higher approval rating than Joe Biden. Our country is going to hell in a handbasket. Speaking of hell, or Bryles. Dan, those are the weekend observations. Putin.
Mike Milbury was fired by NBC.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
So what is the mistake that Stugotz made there?
That he saw him this weekend.
So he didn't see him this weekend?
He couldn't have saw him this weekend.
I could have sworn I saw him, man. I mean, who was it?
I don't know, but he wasn't there.
It's an excellent question, Stugotz. I don't know how you expect us to answer for you on what you saw this weekend.
Oh, man.
I just saw Ben Simmons on television, and he was wearing a rather ornate mask in the press conference, and it made me think he should have just put on like a Lucha Libre total mask and just spent the offseason that way. Just put on a total mask, don't let anyone see you, and just wander into the wilderness without anyone. It's going to be such a suffering for that dude. No matter how much money you make, Stugotz, it's going to hurt so much to have lost that much respect in the eyes of your peers, your teammates, where all of them are looking at you and they're just not respecting that you seemed scared.
30 million this year, 40 million a year, 3 or 4 years from now. That kind of helps. I'm not saying he doesn't feel bad, but it softens the blow, does it not?
I don't want to have that discussion with you again. If you want to believe that, that's fine. I don't think that's helping him sleep last night. To lose the universal respect of the people in your locker room, where you're being asked questions. Doc Rivers and Joel Embiid are being asked questions, and they're like, yeah, it's a tricky question whether we should run it back. The game changed because you were afraid to dunk.
Jessica brought up a good point in the chat. Maybe Stugotz confused Mike Milbury with Mike Babcock.
Oh, Babs.
Before Scottie Pippen shows up here, let's do the funniest thing from the sports weekend.
Hey, people, tell us what in the sport made you laugh hardest this weekend. It is a segment we call What Made You Laugh This Weekend. Ha ha ha!
Chris Cody, what was the funniest thing from the sports weekend?
Just the Nets fans trolling Giannis. I mean, they stole the Heat's move a little bit, but I love James Harden reacting to the fans counting as if they were counting clearly too fast. So they got to like 12, and James Harden's like looking at the ref like, what, it's 12? And it's like they were counting really fast, James.
And it wasn't bothering him. It's like the best he shot free throws all season.
Not to critique the chanting of the Nets fans, but I feel like if you go Mississippi there, you're more kind of adequately counting
Good
10
shout.
seconds.
Good shot.
Oh my God.
Can you imagine, though, a chant, 7 Mississippi, 8 Mississippi?
What do you think a chant led by Woody would sound like at a game?
It would be a dissertation.
One Machu Picchu. Tony, what do you got?
Obviously, it was Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. Belated a
Thank
little
you.
bit. Manny Machado wore the unquestioned dad shoe, the Air Monarch, as a cleat, and I thought it was really funny.
Roy, what do you got?
In Chicago, the Marlins rookies had to get the veterans some donuts from Dunkin' Donuts in full uniform.
Oh, they had to go into the Dunkin' Donuts wearing their uniforms.
Yep.
What do you got, Whittingham?
Going for Austin FC's home debut, Matthew McConaughey, who has the actual title at Austin FC of Minister of Culture, leading the Austin FC supporter section in a chant of Verde Listos, which is their chant, banging on a bongo wearing a fully green suit.
I saw that green suit, and the last time I associated, McConaughey was arrested in Austin for playing the bongos nude, was he not? I believe that's a true story. Put it on the poll, Guillermo, at Batard Show. Did you know that Matthew McConaughey was arrested once for playing the bongos nude in Austin? Billy, what was the funniest thing from the sports weekend?
PJ Tucker and Kevin Durant's mom going back and forth with each other during the game.
It was good. It's funny. Jessica, what do you got?
During the French Grand Prix, Valtteri Bottas cursing out his team for not using a 2-pit strategy, and he ended up losing the race and was off podium because of it.
Can you give us some more racing knowledge, please? You're obsessed with this, and it is growing in popularity, and you are looking to carve out the space as the only person on this show who cares about it. Anything else from the weekend in racing that was fascinating?
Well, yeah, Lewis Hamilton lost his lead. He ended up getting second, which is still good, but now they're behind Max Verstappen in the Constructors' Cup and in the individual, World Championship race. Verstappen looks really good, and Verstappen's team, they knew the strategy for this race, and Mercedes should have listened to Bottas, but they did not for some reason.
Vroom, vroom.
Stugotz, what was the funniest thing? Exactly.
Vroom, vroom.
What was that?
Yes, it's just Stugotz. It's Stugotz. It's the way he forgets his signature lines. Stugotz, what was the funniest thing from the sports weekend?
Mike Milbury.
This is not in sports, but the IRS evidently is continuing to sniff around Nicolas Cage.
I heard this weekend that he was in a movie where he didn't speak. Nicolas Cage. Full movie. Didn't speak.
Best performance ever.
Nicolas Cage is coming out. I saw the trailer. Someone has stolen his pig.
What?
Come on.
I'm not kidding.
Cinephobe is going to have a field day with that.
It's a truffle pig. It's a pig that detects truffles. I think truffles are super valuable. Someone has stolen it. and Nicolas Cage got the script and is like, okay, I'll keep doing it because I'm doing 40 movies a year. And I don't know if I will watch it, but it's John Wick's dog was stolen, and that became an action series of some success. Was the dog stolen or killed? I believe the dog was killed. Somebody killed a puppy, and that birthed John Wick. So Nicolas Cage is saying, you know what? I know you guys like puppies. I'm going to do this with a pig.
I think we all need to issue a apology to Chris Cody, because in the local hour, he said that he thought milk was invented when early Neanderthals had cereal and they needed something to put in the cereal. And I texted my sister, who's a bit of an expert on ancient cultures, and she told me that cereal was invented like 10,000 years before milk became a thing that people drank.
Wow.
That's not true.
Who needs me?
That's not true.
It kind of depends on how you define cereal. So like ancient cultures were eating grains. So you could assume that they were eating grains in the way that we would consume cereal, which is basically just sugared grains, right?
Yeah.
So then they started drinking milk 10,000 years later. So they probably were like, this cereal's a little dry. Got to get some milk.
Look at me.
Look at this cow. Looks tasty.
Blind squirrel.
Just to be clear, we're apologizing to Chris Cody because of his take earlier today that someone was wandering around a village with a bowl of dry cereal and said, oh, that udder over there, I want to try milk for the first time. Let me squirt from that udder of a cow something into my grains. Please stop making that gesture, Chris.
Milking a cow.
That's what you got to do.
That's not what it
That's what you
looked
do,
like.
though. I mean,
I understand that that's what you were trying to pantomime. It was making me uncomfortable, the sensual look on your face.
how else does he do it,
As
though?
you
Long udder.
milked that cow. It was,
Udder.
it was,
Oh, God, man.
it
Come
was-
on.
Yes, the way that he milked an udder, the udder was unusually long. It was,
Just stop it.
okay, yes, please, everyone stop what they're doing.
Let's all do it.
Scottie Pippen is going to, please stop doing that. Scottie Pippen is going to join us here in a little while. Can you get me the stat of the day music, please? Because I saw this on now. Tony's dancing like Donald Trump. Donald Trump obviously dances, as John Oliver says, like he is pleasuring a couple of giraffes at his side. Let's go ahead and play the stat of the day, please.
Start of the day, it is your start of the day. Start of the day, it is your start of the day. Start of the day, it is your start of the day. Start of the day, it is your start of the day.
According to UberFacts, Kobe Bryant's grandma saw him play one professional basketball game. He scored 81 points.
Wow.
Mamba.
Wow.
Why wouldn't she?
Grandmamba.
Why wouldn't?
Hey.
Why wouldn't she watch games after that? Like, if the first game she watched, he scored 81. I feel like I'd be like, hey, come to the next game.
Jessica, I don't believe anyone
Peter
has
Chris.
ever made Billy as proud as you just did with Grand Mamba. It seemed like that envy swept over Billy there. He was thinking to himself, fresh off his appearance with the world's strongest man, when he called him the world's shortest man, because he shit himself twice.
That is great. Good job out of you, Bill.
Wow, a guttural knee slap from
I've never heard her laugh that hard.
because I recommend strongly the latest Mystery Crate, a clip of which was played on Twitter, in which I thought the comedic timing of the shipping container was impeccable as they talked to the world's strongest man, and Chris Cody asked him the very difficult question of how many times have you shit yourself while carrying something heavy? And
It's Chris's go-to question.
What
I ask everyone, not just bodybuilders.
It's like his waitress at brunch on a Saturday.
Yeah.
Let's ask Scottie Pippen the same thing.
I would love. Let's ask.
You
Scottie
have
Pippen.
to, Chris.
Yes,
You have to
I
ask
really
Scotty.
don't, though.
You have to ask
I really
Scotty.
don't.
You have
let's-
to.
let's-
You
let's-
have to.
Chris, we
So I'll ask it.
need
All
to
right.
make that the last question of the Scottie Pippen interview. Just you asking, have you ever shit yourself carrying something heavy? I don't know if the Diamondbacks are still here because I think they've been playing home games and I think they've lost 17 straight. But I did see the other day that they had set a record losing 23 straight road games, which means basically that you've gone on the road 7 times and just gotten swept every single time. And I don't believe that that is something that would happen to a mediocre Double-A team. I believe a Double-A. I'm not kidding you.
Wow.
And in terms of the randomness of baseball, where every once in a while in an exhibition, a college team will beat a major league team during spring training or whatever, I don't think people understand how hard it is to be a professional baseball team. And just because of the randomness of baseball, to lose 23 straight road games, it's why it's a record, Stugotz. It is. No matter how bad your baseball team is, every once in a while you will
luck into a
you
win.
will luck
Yes.
into some victory just because whatever the other team is hitting the ball at everybody. I really do believe what it is that I'm telling you. That Double-A, where the best prospects are, I believe
Yes.
that I can throw a Double-A team out there in a Major League Baseball uniform and they will not lose 23 straight baseball games on the road.
They've lost 17 straight overall, 23 on the road. They're a dreadful team. I'm with you. I'm completely with you. A Double-A team, you send them on the road for 23 games, they come home with at least one victory. I mean, that's maybe a Triple-A team.
Billy, well, I think of Double-A teams as having more talent.
Well, the
because
Double-A
that's where
teams are the best of the
prospects are.
minors. No, I understand that. But, Dan, it is really hard to do. That is really hard to do if you have any sort of talent on your baseball
It's why
team.
it's never happened before. These particular Diamondbacks have done it.
And the last away game that they won was all the way back in April. It was a 7-inning doubleheader. They won both ends of it. So they haven't won a 9-inning away game in 27.
They've lost 17 straight total games also. They're bad, huh?
Evidently, this would indicate that they are bad. What did you think, Billy? I thought of you this weekend when Dontrell Willis says on Twitter, I don't care what anyone says, I made the Marlins hat dope.
D-Train.
I mean, is he wrong? He made the Marlins hat dope, Dan. D-Train. Remember when they had all those D-Train giveaways? I still have somewhere. I'd have to find. I have a D-Train train whistle that was a giveaway one time. I have the D-Train train conductor hat. Remember in the outfield? There used to be the guys with the trains that they'd go. every time.
The guys in the outfield. We should talk to them. What do you think they're up to?
I want you to do a roving man on the street interview segment where you ask everyone whether they've shit themselves lifting something heavy.
I'm on it.
I want you to go out onto Ocean Drive and make sure that that happens in the next couple of days. Billy, were you the one? Explain to me how it is that you got sucked into watching all the Fast and Furious movies, all of them. Did you watch all of them here recently?
Sucked in. How dare you? No, I wasn't sucked in. The new one's coming out Friday. I had to catch up. Lots of things I don't remember, Dan. There was a couple movies that I saw only one time, so I spent this weekend trying to catch up those around me on what was going on. I'm through 6 right now, so no spoilers on 7 or 8 here, Dan. Don't tell me what happened, but good franchise, huh? I'm trying to figure out how I can see 9 without going to the theaters, though. How do you think I can do that?
It's not a streaming service. It's not like one of these HBO Max releases.
I don't know. I haven't found it that way yet. And I need to finish watching because HBO Max, I had a free trial this weekend. I don't have the HBO Max, Dan. So maybe you want to send me your password so I can watch the rest of these movies because I was getting halfway through and I think it expires the next day or two. So I got like 2 more movies I got to get through. Also, Hobbs and Shaw, by the way, I had a lot of judgment last week when I said Hobbs and Shaw might have been better than some of the other Fast and Furious movies. You know what I found out? Have you ever heard of Rotten Tomatoes, Dan? Turns out, audience score on Rotten Tomatoes for Hobbs and Shaw, the highest of any of the Fast movies, any of them. And I would say that Fast 9, F9, should be Fast 10 because Hobbs and Shaw should be part 9 Because if we're going by this logic that it wasn't the main cast, then 2 and 3 shouldn't have counted either, because that didn't have the full cast and those were totally different stories. Also, Dan, I know that you're wondering about Fast and Furious, and I don't want to talk about it too much. 5 totally changed the game in the Fast franchise. IYKYK.
You felt how watching, you said 6, so it's 12 straight hours. This weekend had 12 straight hours of Fast and the Furious, or more than that? Are the movies longer than 2 hours?
Yeah, they vary, a little 2 hour, 10 minutes here and there, but I had to, break it up. I'd have to, watch and then, do chores and such things that have to be done. So over 3 days, I saw 6 of them. 3 or 4 days, I saw 6 of them. But you got to catch up, Dan. That's the thing. Like Money Heist, for example. Have you ever seen Money Heist on Netflix? Have you seen it? Casa de Papel. Have you seen it, Dan?
I have
They're
not.
going to come back in like September. And I don't know what the hell's going on by the time they come back in September. It's been like 2 years since the last season. So I'm going to have to rewatch everything again. That's a problem with binging. All right? You start binging all these things and then you're done with it in 6 minutes and then you have to wait 4 years for it to come out again.
Billy, you seem to be watching an odd amount of movies. Has becoming a father, like all of a sudden you have all this time to watch movies?
It's the opposite of that. It's like I'm up at these strange times and I have to be up for like periods of time. These kids eat every 2 hours now, right? So you don't have time to do anything. So it's like, well, you wake them up and then you start feeding them. And the feeding process takes like 40 to 45 minutes. And then they have to eat 2 hours after when they started. So you only have like an hour. So these movies that it seems like I'm just sitting down and watching will take me 4 days to finish some of them. I'll watch a 2 hour movie over the span of 16 hours and 10 minutes at a time. And then I have to rewind. I'm like, what just happened? The Naked Gun 33 1/3. You know how long it took me to watch that? It must have taken me 21 hours to watch Naked Gun 33 1/3. It was not worth it. It was not worth it. It was not a good movie. The worst of the Naked Guns. There, I said it. Naked Gun 33 1/3. The worst of the Naked Guns. Don't think it should have been made.
Took you 7/8 of a day to watch it.
Oh, jeez.
What did you think about Tokyo Drift, Billy?
I only saw that one in theaters. I saw it now. Not that bad. Not that bad.
Wow.
I don't know how I don't know how surprised you guys will be by this. This is how I watch because of I like some action movies, but Mortal Kombat, because it played Stugotz to some of the things that I liked with childhood video games.
Sure.
This will not surprise you the way that I watched the Mortal Kombat movie, which is I watched it in 21 minutes. I just kept fast forwarding to the fight scenes. Like I don't care about the dialogue. I don't care about it. And the fight scenes are amazing. They're amazing, but I don't need anything else. Just give me just inject into my veins fast as possible. And I think a lot of people can watch a lot of action movies this way. Just give me the scenes in Mortal Kombat where you're having amazing cinematography around the fight scenes. Watched it in 21 minutes, just went through 6 fight scenes, got to them as fast as I could.
Don't you care about the plot, though?
Not
Everything
at
in
all.
between?
Not at all. Of
Really?
Mortal Kombat?
I mean, imagine just going to the fight scenes of Rocky. I mean, you'll miss
Exactly.
everything.
The
you know?
plot, is there any reason that you can't name an action movie not from the 1970s?
I mean, have they made any? I mean, Fast and Furious, I guess, but I'm not a big fan, and that's Billy's department. So I just give you Rocky, Rambo, and Cobra.
Anytime we're talking about it's Tango and Cash, Cobra, and Rocky.
Point Break.
It is.
Stugotz, have you seen Skyscraper? That was a good
No.
one.
Oh, please tell. I mean,
You haven't seen Skyscraper?
I have not. No,
Just
it sounds.
imagine The Rock just jumping from a crane to a skyscraper.
With one leg.
Oh my God.
He only had one leg.
How did I miss it? I mean,
Well, because you haven't seen a movie evidently in 40 years.
damn, once you see Rocky, there's really no point in seeing anything else. I gotta be honest.
It is fairly amazing that every time we're talking about movies, I mean, Rocky was made in 1976, correct?
I think so, yeah.
Tango and Cash,
Yeah.
Rocky.
Cobra.
If you're going Cobra, if you're going super recent, Point Break is what you do.
Stugotz, like we play movie trailers all the time, and you say like we mentioned the name of like an action movie. You go, I'm there, and you really can't reference anything from the last 20 years.
No.
20, it sounds 30 and 40 years like you have to go into the tank for Stugotz to give you. When is the last time you went to the theater and what? You have become Greg Cody, who hasn't seen a movie since, which one was it, Chris?
Draft
What?
Day.
Oh no! Welcome to Mooseport.
Nope, there's another one. There's it's a Kevin Costner election movie of some sort. What am I?
Swing
on?
vote.
right.
Swing vote.
Swing vote,
Yes. Swing vote.
Yeah.
What is the last movie
Trying
that
to think.
Stugotz has seen in a theater? Are you gonna go like Silence of the Lambs or something on us?
Right around there.
man.
Misery, maybe.
It's-
Stugotz, you're doing a huge disservice to yourself not watching action movies that are out now. Action movies now are so much better than the old action movies. The stuff that they're doing is
Stugotz
insane.
will not have you
Right.
say that anything is better than Cobra.
Billy, go watch Cobra, okay? I don't know what you're watching now, but Marion Cobretti, a detective, okay? He lights a match off of his tooth and he throws it backwards and everything explodes. I mean, movie over.
I could have watched Cobra in 90 seconds. Fast forwarded straight to that scene.
I'm trying to think the last movie I went to in the theater and I can't. When's the last time? Have you been recently?
No, I haven't. Well, no one's been recently, or not too many people have been recently.
Like
but
in the last 5 years.
yes,
I
I have been to a handful of movies in the last 5 years in the theater.
It was the Rambo movie that we all went to see together, wasn't it? That was the last time you went to a theater.
I think you're right. No More Blood?
No, it's the one before that one.
There's always more blood.
I don't think No More Blood.
Final Blood.
I don't
is
think
what it was
No More.
called.
John Rambo.
No More Blood is not one of the options when it comes to anything in the Rambo franchise. There's always more blood. Although I do believe we were promised some sort of final blood and we didn't believe them. Was it indeed the final blood? Was that the last of the Rambo franchise? I do believe that I think, yeah, that movie that we saw in the theater together as a show, I'm pretty sure should have gotten a porn rating just for violence.
Somebody threw a baby in the fire.
Yeah.
It was Last Blood.
Okay, it was the problem. It wasn't Final Blood. It was Last Blood, and Roy has it correct. I believe it should have had a triple X rating for the reason that he just mentioned. Not because it was porn, but because somebody threw a baby in a fire. And it's absolutely so.
Would I surprise you if I told you that the first Rambo was not actually called Rambo? It's called First Blood.
Yeah, it was First Blood.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So here's the order of the films: First Blood, Rambo: First Blood Part 2, Rambo 3, then just Rambo when they rejuvenate the series in 2008, and then 11 years later they bring it back with Rambo: Last Blood.
First
Good.
Blood, Last Blood brings it all full circle.
Right.
I do think that we're headed, though. Does anyone believe there are more Rockies now? And then Sylvester Stallone isn't in the last. The next one coming out, Sylvester Stallone's not in it, right? The Creed franchise is advancing.
I think
with
it was the first one he was not in. Yeah.
Well, he wasn't in the last one, or
He
it's-
was in the last one.
It's the next one
Oh,
that
it's the
he's not
next
in.
one,
It's
okay.
the one that has not come out. But are we done with Rambo? Is Final Blood? Because I believe we all questioned that. We did not believe that Final Blood would be Final Blood or No More Blood or whatever it is that Stugotz wants to call it.
If we're making Rocky movies without Sylvester Stallone, that means he's done, right? That basically, he's out. I mean, I feel like Rambo can come back with a new lead. There can be a new John Rambo, presumably, because we'll reheat any idea. But if Stallone's not in Rocky movies anymore, then he's done, right?
We found more blood.
That should be the next
Yeah.
one. Scottie Pippen will be joining us here in a little bit, but I did want to go back on something, Stugotz, because weekend basketball was moving fast, and I'm surprised that we went so quickly from an athletic story about there are problems in the Dallas locker room to GM of 16 years and guy who has been with the franchise for a quarter century, Donnie Nelson, out.
Mm-hmm.
Rick Carlisle, champion coach, 13-year tenure. I believe I have this right, Stugotz, there's so much turnover in coaching in the NBA that I think Steve Kerr is the third longest tenured coach right now in the NBA, now that Carlisle is out in Dallas. But what do you make of the fact that organizationally, after calling it bullshit, an athletic story, that there was a power shift going on in the organization, that both those guys days later, who represent one of the most stable power structures in the NBA, both of them have been knocked out after Mark Cuban said that Bob Voulgaris acquiring power in that organization, that the story was not true.
So I heard about the rumors about Carlisle before I heard about the story with Vulgaris, where it was just 13 years and maybe it's been enough and maybe I want to try something different or do something new. So I'm not certain those things are tied together, but I think most people probably do. They feel like those things are all tied together. And you have Luka who's upset. And so my initial reaction was, wow, these seem, first off, Luka's a great player. And Donnie Nelson has a great reputation as a GM, and Rick Carlisle has a great reputation as a coach. And I just wonder if Bob Vulgaris and what he brings to the organization, if indeed these things are all tied together, I wonder if it's worth it. If Bob Vulgaris is worth it, since he's running off what many people believe to be very good basketball minds in Carlisle and Nelson. I mean, is he worth it? I don't know.
I thought it was really interesting that Rick Carlisle almost explicitly made it a point in releasing a statement to Woj. I'm making this decision of my own volition. I'm not getting fired. Now, Tim McMahon reported on Zach Lowe's podcast that even if he didn't leave, he was going to be on the hot seat next season. But Rick Carlisle, very clear, I'm out. Like, I don't want to deal with this anymore. And it does kind of signal a greater organizational problem, which I think Jess has pointed out on a couple of occasions now. Mark Cuban has been kind of caught on the back foot on things that are happening in his own building that he doesn't seem to know about. There seemed to be a huge political war within this organization over power, and Mark Cuban didn't seem to know about it.
To me, the most surprising thing about everything happening in Dallas is Don Nelson and Rick Carlisle have only been doing their jobs all their lives to have a player like Luka. And they're walking away from that.
Yeah.
It is the most
generational type player.
Well,
Dave.
not just a generational type player, but the most treasured thing in that sport that you can give a coach, an organization, anything is young star who will solidify your franchise for a decade because you will be relevant simply by virtue of having him. That's not something that people walk away from of their own volition. And it makes me wonder what the hell is happening in that organization, because Rick Carlisle has been around long enough, working hard enough to know that that is a thing that lures Stan Van Gundy out of retirement, even though the job is a misery because, Zion Williamson is there. That's the thing that you want, because look at how hard it was for Stan in Detroit because he didn't have that. Every coach, every GM in the sport knows that's what I want. Daryl Morey sees it falling apart in Houston. What does he say? Oh, wait, Philadelphia, that looks like an awfully nice job. Why? Because they've got young generational talent, and I'm going to be relevant. I'm not gonna not be in the playoffs when I have someone like, if I do my job a modicum of I could do my job excellently without Luka and not make the playoffs.
Right.
I could do my job mediocre.
He gets me there.
And he will get me to the playoffs, and ostensibly he will keep getting better, and you'll keep finding the right pieces to put around him. And it just makes me wonder, how bad does everything have to be there structurally for people to walk away from the thing that they want the most?
But you can kind of see it, right? Like you could see, hey, you have these two lifers, Carlisle, Nelson, and in walks Bob Vulgaris, and no one kind of knows who he is, and he's got all the answers, and he's the analytics guy and the gambling guy, and he has all the numbers. Like you could see that rub, right? You could see how that would happen, right?
I don't see how that would happen because I don't know the details of what it is structurally is happening in the organization that is true when the reports are that Vulgaris was influencing Carlisle's lineups. And that was part of what Cuban was calling bullshit because the coach doesn't allow that. But then Carlisle says, hey, I'm leaving. And it throws remember when
How does Mark not know, by the way? I mean, it's his organization.
But he's got a lot of things that he's interested in. I mean,
he cares deeply about that basketball team.
Understood. I don't know how to answer your question. I just remember Daryl Morey telling us the story of I would come in and put a packet on Kevin McHale's desk of analytics, and he would take them and throw them in the wastebasket. because the coach has that. You saw Moneyball, right?
Yep.
Philip Seymour Hoffman is laughing at the idea of Billy Beane coming in here organizationally and trying to. The thing that's sacred for the coach is you allow him to pick the lineups. And so I simply don't know what's true there. I'd like to know what's true. I don't know what's true in terms of, is Bob Voulgaris actually forcing lineups on Rick Carlisle? Because that would be enough to make Rick Carlisle leave.
Oh, no doubt. I'm still wondering how Philip Seymour Hoffman got the role of Art Howe.
What are you laughing back there about,
I mean,
Chris?
less Shark Tank, more Mavericks Tank. Am I right?
That's what you were laughing about?
I wasn't laughing at that.
Go outside and ask people whether they've shit themselves.
No, Scotty? Where's Scotty? Oh, I guess I can't do that.
Scotty's
Damn.
disappeared, unfortunately. People were waiting around to. What happened to Scotty?
It was described as a mix-up.
That time zone thing again. Don't get me started.
Okay.
Who was it described as a mix-up by? Billy?
Yes.
Yeah, it was privately in the chat saying, "Hey, don't mention this on air. We can discuss after we're done." There was a bit of a mix-up with Scotty.
Right.
Central time zone. Please.
So annoying.